This is the American Family Association and AFA Today.
Oh, well, hi there. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you. It's AFA Today on AFR Talk, and we've got a lot of interesting things to talk about today. Sorry, it's going to make people very sad. Very, very sad. At Sochi yesterday, the Russians were eliminated in hockey. Sorry. See, ever since the big moment, when we took them down in Lake Placid, I've loved every time that the Russians have lost ever since, and so they lost. But what really makes it fun when Russia loses is not the fact that they lose, but and the scowl on Putin's face gets even more. I'm now even more angry. I am the former KGB, now president of the Russian Federation, and I will kill whoever lost this game for us. Not that he gets more worked up about it, but the funny things that Russians say. Okay, so the coach yesterday, the Russian press was out for blood, says usatoday.com. During a meeting with throngs of reporters from his native land, the coach, Bilyalutdinov. Brent, did I say that right? Because you have your master's in Russian, and I just wanted Bilyalutdinov was asked not at all leading questions such as, "Is this a catastrophe?" And he was offered suggestions about how he should have played his players. Yeah, they're like, well, don't you think you should have used so-and-so and so-and-so at the defensive spots? That was kind of fun. Let's see. What else did they ask him? What future, if any, do you see for your own work and for your coaching staff? Because your predecessor was eaten alive after the Olympics. Now, see, because it's Russia, you don't know whether to take that as though they skewered him and barbecued him and served him up at a buffet, or if he just got fired. Because it's Russia. You can't know that. It's not possible to know that. He says, well then, eat me alive right now. The questioner goes, no, he says, just eat me. I won't be here anymore. But we have the World Championship coming up. Well then, there will be a different coach because I won't exist anymore since you will have eaten me. But you're staying, aren't you? Yes, I will remain living. I'm sorry. I love it. I love it when the Russians lose in hockey. It's just, and today, just because of this, I've gone out and done something crazy. You can't see her. She's standing off in the corner, but I have my own Russian interpreter that anytime I want her to during the show today, she'll just pipe in with her own little word here. Yeah, that means, well then, eat me alive right now. Now again, I don't know if the Russians are cannibals. But considering all the trouble that producer was in when his little retarded snowflake didn't open, you gotta feel for the guys. I just wonder if, he does wake up like looking over his shoulder today. Yes, thank you, lady. I appreciate it. Now go back and stand in the corner some more. All right, so complete with Russian translators in the studio today. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you. My phone number is 888-589-8840. Is it wrong for me to just glory in the downfall of the Russian Federation in the Olympic hockey? They played in the hockey. What it looks like now is that Canada and the U.S. are going to go against each other for possibly the gold. If whoever beats Finland, someone's going to have to beat them. But it will not be Mother Russia at Sochi. So maybe we'll have some more retarded snowflakes fly across the closing ceremonies that do not open. But that's okay because evidently we will have some missing members of the coaching staff. Because again, as we all know, the last coach, he was eaten alive. Yeah, thank you. Okay, sit down. That's enough. Sorry, she's starting to get a little annoying now. But anyway, moving on to the news of the day, besides the fact that, did you hear that Russia lost and has been eliminated from the Olympics? That's awesome. 888-589-8840. On to serious things. Here's some news headlines that are going on here in the middle of the day. The Wall Street Journal has today issued a couple of editorials that are rather intriguing. We're going to talk about one of them. But the one that I probably not going to spend a lot of time on today is they have said to John Kerry, stop embarrassing America on the stage of environmentalism. By the way, there is I'm sorry, the control room said, can we use another word besides retarded? I was not using that descriptively. I was using that literally. In music, when you have a retard, it slows down. The snowflake did not open. It was a slow snowflake. It was not fully developed. It was underdeveloped. It was a proper literal usage of the word. So I just don't want people to be offended that I know my English language and used a word in its literal understanding without any slight to any people group or any group of other people. I just want it. If the control room's worried about it, other people may be worried about it. I don't want anybody to be worried about it. It's still politically okay to use words for what they actually mean. Like, I feel really gay today. Okay, maybe that's a bad example, but I am quite happy. I got mostly a good night's sleep last night. I was happy about that. Anyway, so back to the Wall Street Journal. Flat earthers, they're saying to Kerry, used to be the consensus. You keep walking around talking about consensus, and here you've got this incredible data that has been wrong at every turn through these computer models that have been predicting the global warming increase. And as they have been wrong, nobody in the pop culture, in the academia, in the public policy sectors, nobody in those circles have been telling the truth. That the computer models have all gotten it wrong. That the warming hasn't been nearly what they predicted it would be. And in fact, we should probably just stop talking about global warming altogether, because a lot of the scientists that were being quoted as being the experts, they got caught in that scandal where they had purposefully manipulated the facts. But they weren't worried about someone eating them alive like the Russian hockey coaches are. What do you do if you lose the hockey game for the Russian team? Like, where do you hide? Because Putin has people everywhere, right? I mean, he's an old Cold War guy. He likes that, like, spy stuff. Trace them all over the earth and, just slit their neck in the middle of the night in the middle of South America or something. Anyway, we don't have anyone that's nearly afraid of getting the global warming stuff wrong, because we just say stuff that's not true on the world stage all the time, and that's amazing. Here's another headline. The group called Friends of Abe, you may have heard of this group. It's a group of media people, actors, media personnel, celebrities of different sort. They get together in New York and in Hollywood, and they meet, and they're always painted by the press like this super secret group of conservatives. That's how they always get headlines and stuff. There's a story in the Hollywood Reporter today. Ted Cruz to address Hollywood's secret conservative group. Except that they're called Friends of Abe, and they're no longer a secret. But he's going to tell them they were right. A few weeks ago, the IRS tried to force Friends of Abe to reveal who its membership was. And Friends of Abe said, hey, you see that huge cliff over there? Go jump off of that. That's what they said to the IRS. And Ted Cruz is going to tell them today they did the right thing by not turning over their roles. But here's what I want to get to. Because as much joking as we can have about, Russian vengeance in the state going against a hockey team, a hockey coach that may have, lost the championship for him. Yes, I know. Please stop. That's enough. Big mistake inviting her here today. But in a world where we think that's funny, that the Russian coach is like, well, I'm a dead man now. Just shoot me now, but I will remain living. We don't think that that's really the U.S. We don't think that that's even possible in the U.S. However, yesterday, the Wall Street Journal printed another story. It's actually an editorial written by a current FCC commissioner who happens to be in the minority on the commission. But he has revealed what the FCC is going to do. And I have to tell you why it matters, because this is actually very cloak and dagger stuff. Let me just start with his editorial. News organizations often disagree about what Americans need to know. This is the words of Ajit Pate, I think is how you say his name. News organizations often disagree about what Americans need to know. MSNBC, for example, apparently believes that the traffic in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and the George Washington Bridge is a huge crisis of our time, must be a massive cover-up, get to the bottom of it. That's what MSNBC likes to talk about. Fox News, on the other hand, has spent a little bit of time talking about the Benghazi attacks of September 2012 and what needs to be yet discovered in that story. The FCC commissioner writing this says the American people, for their part, disagree about what they want to watch. And he says, but everyone should agree on this. The government has no place pressuring media organizations into covering certain stories. He says, unfortunately, the Federal Communications Commission, which, let me just add parenthetically here, is a division of the executive branch of government. The Federal Communications Commission, where I am a commissioner, he writes, does not agree. Last May, the FCC proposed an initiative to thrust the federal government into newsrooms across the country with what they are calling the Multi-Market Study of Critical Information Needs, MMSCIN, or the CIN. The agency plans to send, get this, researchers to grill reporters, editors, and station owners about how they decide which stories they decide to run. And a field test for Columbia, South Carolina is scheduled to begin this spring. The purpose of the Critical Information Needs Agency, according to the FCC, is to ferret out information from television and radio broadcasters about, quote, the process by which stories are selected, and how often stations cover, quote, critical information needs, along with, quote, perceived station bias and, quote, perceived responsiveness to underserved populations. I wonder who those are. How does the FCC plan to dig up all that information? First, the agency selected 8 categories of critical information, such as the environment. And economic opportunities. Such categories that they believe local newscasters should cover. It plans to ask station managers and news directors and journalists and television anchors and on-air reporters to tell the government about their own personal news philosophy and how the station ensures that the community gets critical information. The FCC also wants to wade into office politics. One question for reporters is, have you ever suggested coverage of what you would consider a story with critical information for your customers that was rejected by management? Follow-up questions ask for specifics about how editorial discretion is exercised, as well as the reasoning behind the decisions. Participation in the CIN study is voluntary, says the commissioner, in theory. Kevin McCullough with one of the most important news stories we've ever discussed on this show when we continue. This is AFA Today on AFR Talk. I'm so glad that you're with us because the Russians lost in hockey last night, and I'm always happy the day after the Russians lose in hockey. Yes, I know. Please, sit back down. We've had enough.